Stand by for these important messages. Your call is very important to us. The sound you are hearing is the wind outside, most of it. There's probably other sounds too, but let's focus on that. Hey, there we go. And this bus is just rocking. And the wind is just bouncing us around. I was having a hard time riding the motorcycle tonight. It was moving me around pretty good. Officially, it is the 4th of May. It's currently about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just getting home from the Wednesday shift. Now, what we're doing tomorrow, which is Thursday and Friday, I'm going in at 1, and we'll do my hands-on training on the various vehicles that I will be driving. So let's see, currently I am qualified on LLV, FFV, ProMaster, 1-ton and 2-ton trucks. And also in Austin I was qualified on the diesel forklift. So now I'm getting qualified on the electric forklifts. There's a thing called a mule. It's a little tow tractor that they use for pulling carts around. Forklift, mule. I don't remember what else. It's something I'm gonna have to look at. It is so dusty in my yard area. It's just silt. And a night like tonight, coming in, especially the areas that I had to do some digging, I broke up the soil and there's nothing to hold it together. So I'd go through a soft spot, and then with the wind blowing, it just had this whole cloud of dust floating along. So that's, I don't know what I can do about it, but I had hoped that driving over it would pack it back down, but it seems to be doing the opposite. It's churning it up more. One of the things I want to do here is have a remote control. I think I use a solenoid. Between the batteries and the inverter, so I could have a switch up here with an indicator light that would come on when the inverter was turned on. So I could flip the switch, the inverter would come on, then I could turn the lights on. Because right now I have to walk all the way to the back of the bus, and which, I mean, it's 20 feet. It's not that big of a deal. But usually I've got a bunch of stuff sitting in the aisle, so I can't just walk back there real easy. In the email I saw, there was the last power bill. I think it was only $15 or so, something like that. So I'll set that up on payday to be auto paid and then done. Be nice to not have a power bill anymore. Short term, burning gas in the generator is unbelievably inexpensive right now, because I'm not doing it constantly. You know, I've had days where, you know, I might go 2 days without running the generator, you know, because I got enough battery or I just don't need anything. So that's really working out pretty well. Like now, you know, I've got enough battery capacity to run the lights and, you know, maybe plug in the laptop or something. Coffee, if I'm going to make a pot, I need the generator. Microwave works better on the generator. Anything else I can run pretty good off of the inverters. So that's getting closer. Oh, the deep freeze. I want to experiment with that a little more. If I had enough power in the batteries, this is the thing. I need a way to recharge the batteries continuously. You know, wind would be the obvious choice, especially a night like tonight. So wind or solar, or both. But if I can keep putting power back into the batteries, that should be able to run the deep freeze. Because the deep freeze doesn't run constantly. So once it's cold, it would stay cold. And it would just cycle a little bit once in a while. The chocolate bar hasn't melted yet. Again, so it's not a scientific test or anything, but the chocolate bar was sitting out and it was all mushy. And so I threw it in there and now it's not mushy, so it means it has to be better. Oh man, tired. Yeah, the camera batteries are charged, that's good. Someday I'll get things a little more organized, but it's actually pretty close right now. This part is workable, that part is just lost cause right now. Because it looks like I'm not going to get days off until, I think I saw schedule, probably starting Saturday, I'm going to start 1600 and work until 12:30. So that'll get me home later, but once it's dark, it doesn't really matter what time you get home. The only hiccup is it gets light in here so early, so I tend to wake up. I had a laugh, it was yesterday, one of the positions we were in, we were just dumping mail onto a conveyor belt and then pulling things that were too big to fit out of it. And I saw a bunch of letters from the company I bought the land from, and all the receipts going out to other customers. I just thought it was funny because every now and then I'll see something I recognize. I'm like, oh, there's those guys. You know, I know those guys. So it's funny seeing it from in that quantity because you know, when I get it, there's my letter kind of thing. But when they, you know, when you see them coming through and there's a whole, you know, 50 or 100 of them all rubber banded together, and you know, he's like, oh wow, look at them all go. I'm not the only one. It's just kind of funny to see the scale of things. I was talking to one of the ladies I work with, and I mentioned something. I was sorting, and she walked up behind me, and she looked, and she just picked up one of the magazines that was in my tray, and she's like, "Oh wow, that's neat." And so I was asking her. I said I was just about to say, "How long do you work here before you stop seeing what you're sorting?" And she's like, I forget how she said it, but what she does is she has a notepad in her apron and her pen, and whenever she sees something that she likes, then she'll write it down on her notepad and then look it up when she gets home. And she said her husband is always asking why she has so many magazines coming, and that's because of it. You sit there all day and you're sorting magazines, and you start seeing them, and you know, it's like, I don't know that I've ever actually seen the New Yorker magazine. You know, I've heard about it. I knew it existed because it's almost like the Saturday Evening Post, I think it was called, where they had the cartoon that was always on the front cover. So on the New Yorker, there's also a cartoon or something on the front cover. And I was sorting today, and I saw a whole pile of the New Yorkers coming through, and I was just like, oh, it's a real thing. It's like, I don't think I've ever seen it before. So I held a bunch in my hand. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then you put them back on the rack you're sorting them into, and get on to the next one. Anyway, whatever. Mostly for my amusement, so a year from now I can look back and see what it was like when I started, I guess. Yeah, it's getting cold in here now. I gotta go back out in the wind and take a whiz. Oh well. Such is life. More tomorrow.